All right, moving on here to our next guest. Newly surfaced internal messages suggest Boeing employees felt pressured in 2016 to get safety-related approval from federal regulators as quickly as possible. Now, 3 years later, two Boeing 737 MAX crashes killed a total of 346 people. Joining us now is Ben Goldstein, congressional and regulatory reporter at Aviation Week. Great to have you here with us today, Ben. Thanks for joining us. So set the scene for us here. What exactly did Boeing workers know in 2016, and how did they handle that information with the FAA?
Well, the latest setback for Boeing occurred last Friday when the first of two tranches of documents became available and were shared by Boeing with congressional committees that are investigating the manufacturer right now. The first tranche was a tranche of text messages between the former chief technical pilot who was developing the 737 MAX. And with messages that he shared, he indicated that he was aware of how the MCAS flight control system, which was implicated in both of the deadly crashes involving the aircraft, he indicated that the plane maker was aware that it was not functioning. It was not functioning properly, and he referred to its functioning as egregious. In the second tranche of documents, which was emails between this same Boeing employee and an FAA employee, he bragged about having unknowingly misled regulators with regards to the safety of the MCAS system, and he referred to having Jedi mind tricked regulators. Um, he also
Wow.
did that he usually gets what he wants with regards to
Ben,
having the aircraft certified.
Ben,
So that
how does what we learned in recent weeks change how we know about what we know about how Boeing has handled this? Not in
yeah.
terms of just in terms of the aftermath, but in terms of the development, the years up to the first flight of the 737 MAX.
Well, it shows first of all that they were aware that the MCAS system was not functioning as intended. It shows that they were aware that there were safety risks with MCAS, and it also, more troublingly perhaps, it indicates the appearance of an improper relationship between Boeing and the FAA. And that's really what the investigations in Congress are centered on. It's um, Boeing's system of delegating certification authorities to manufacturers, or rather FAA's system of delegating certification authorities to manufacturers who are, on the one hand, tasked with self-certifying, and on the other hand, they're developing the airplane. So it could pose a conflict of interest, and that's what these investigations are really about.
So given what we know and what we've uncovered thus far as the lack of safety precautions, the protocols, what does Boeing have to do, in addition to what they've already done in creating a new safety board, stripping the chairmanship from Muhlenberg, what do they have to do to give flyers the confidence once these aircraft do actually end up back in the skies?
Well, that's a really good question. It's going to take time to repair the brand. As far as assuring the general public, um, there's only so much they can do. They have to prove that the aircraft is safe. They have to get it certified with international regulators, and they have to get it back up into the skies. It's probably not going to happen in 2020. It
Wow.
looks like, as of now.
Wait,
Um,
Ben, I just want to make sure I just want to make sure I heard that right. You don't think that the plane will be back in the skies in 2020?
no, no. Recently, last week, Air Canada, as well as Southwest, they both removed all MAX flying from their schedules through February 2020.
Right,
Uh,
but
it
that's only 2 months into 2020, so there's still 8 more months, or 10 more months rather, right?
right, right. So what I said. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think the aircraft is going to be back in the skies through
Okay,
2019.
right, right. Okay, I just want to make sure that that's right. What about Muhlenberg's future here? I don't
Yeah.
see personally how he continues to be CEO when this is back in the skies. I mean, this is a pretty big stain on his legacy, correct?
Well, over the weekend there was some speculation that maybe this would lead to his resignation. However, there are also industry analysts and people on Wall Street who are pretty confident that he's going to survive this crisis. Like as you noted before, he was removed from his chairman position. As for whether or not he's going to remain CEO, I really can't say. We're going to have to see, how this unfolds. The latest setback with regards to these emails and text messages. We're going to have to also see how he performs in Congress when he testifies next week in front of both House and Senate committees, and to really gauge a reaction as to where Muhlenberg is at right now.
Yeah, what do you expect from him in that testimony next week?
Well, I expect Chairman DeFazio from the House Transportation Committee to grill him pretty hard about these recent revelations with regard to the emails and text messages. I expect that Muhlenberg himself will stick to the same talking points that he's stuck to thus far, which is, that Boeing, puts safety first, and that the delegation system with the FAA, has been used successfully for many years, and that the company is cooperating with the various regulatory and congressional probes into its airplanes.
Ben, I want to just end with the FAA and regulators here, and hear from you about how you think that the process of approving of an airplane's airworthiness might change, given what we saw with the close relationship between Boeing and the FAA. I mean, to a certain extent, there has to be a close relationship, right? This is, really the only company that makes commercial airliners of these size here in the United States, or I should say that's a US-based company. So to a certain extent, they have to be close, but there's a lot of scrutiny around that relationship, no?
Yeah, right. It really comes down to how FAA delegates certification authorities to Boeing. FAA will continue to delegate authorities to Boeing. It has to, because it doesn't have the resources to certify aircraft on its own. It relies on manufacturers to help it do that. There was a recent review by a board of international regulators that found flaws with FAA's certification and delegation processes. Most of those relate to FAA's oversight of the delegation program. So I would expect over the next year, we're going to be hearing about this a lot more, and we may see some kind of legislation to address flaws in the oversight of the delegation program, as well as FAA taking steps on its own to comply with the various regulatory probes into this aircraft.
All right, that's Ben Goldstein from Aviation Week magazine. Ben, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Ben.